Hello friends, my name is Michelle Fondin and I'm the author of the two new books, Chakra Healing for Vibrant Energy, Exploring Your 7 Energy Centers with Mindfulness, Yoga, and Ayurveda, and Enlightened Medicine, Your Power to Get Well Now, an integrative approach to healing the 7 deadly lifestyle diseases. And welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about why authors must get reviews on big sites like Amazon. Whether you're a reader or whether you're an author, there's some important information for you to understand. So in the days of old, which wasn't too long ago, right? It was only like before the birth of the internet. Authors could forge a name for themselves by word of mouth, by librarians, by bookstores, not only big bookstores like Borders Books at that time and Barnes & Noble Books, but also through indie bookstores. So when an author was published by their publisher, typically they would go on something called a book tour, and a book tour would take them to various cities where they would do book signings, and the stores themselves would advertise these book signings. They would advertise in magazines and newspapers, in neighborhood journals. But now times have changed completely for an author. And here is why. Because bookstores are not very common anymore. We're talking about brick and mortar stores, and I know Amazon's opening up some brick and mortar stores, but typically speaking, most people are doing their shopping for books online. And not only that, but the information that we have out there available to us is a constant flood of information that's coming in at all times. And a lot of people don't even really read books anymore. They might listen to audiobooks or read on their Kindle readers, but these hard paperback or hardcover books, readers don't typically read them as much as they used to 20 years ago. We're not talking about a large dip, because I know studies have shown that people still prefer paperback and hardcover to Kindle or audiobooks. However, we just have so much information coming to us at the same time. We've got internet feeds and social media feeds, and we've got a lot of text messages to read and emails to read. We've got so much to read that oftentimes when we have some downtime, we're just taking a few minutes to read a few pages of a book, and it might take us a year to finish a book. And so for an author, let's look at it from the author side of things. For the author side of things, if they have the good fortune like myself to have a publisher, now I'm a hybrid author if you haven't noticed. Hybrid means that I have some independently published books and I have some traditionally published books with a publisher. I have the good fortune to have a publisher. Now, a publisher is not going to publish everything you write, and they have, depending on the publisher, certain parameters, such as my publisher says that they will only publish an author who is not probably a top name like Deepak Chopra or Eckhart Tolle. They will only publish an author every 18 months. So what is an author to do in between those 18 months if they want to publish books? Well, they have to go the indie route. So I'm blessed to have the opportunity to have both ends. It's like I have the best of both worlds, which is incredible, and I'm so grateful for that. However, it's still really challenging for a book author to sell books. Now, let's talk realistically. When we look at certain book authors, which are super popular book authors, we're talking about the top names, and I don't really need to name names. You guys know which authors I'm talking about. We look at them and we say, wow, they're making like millions of dollars. They don't have any problem at all. Yes, however, those are the top authors, of which there are very little. There are so few in comparison to the number of authors that are out there. So the reach for authors that are below the top authors is really difficult. And here's why. It's because there's so much vying for your attention in the way of all the things that I named, including like ads and including normal daily life, like you have to work and you have to take care of your kids and maybe take care of your house and yourself, that it's really difficult to be noticed. And that is so important, because if you want to make a living being an author, you have to be noticed. And how do you get noticed? Well, you do things like start a YouTube channel and you can do stuff on social media, but that still might not sell books. What really sells books and helps an author to sell books are getting reviews. Getting reviews are absolutely crucial, especially on big sites like Amazon. About 60% of all books are sold through Amazon. So if you don't have reviews for your books, then you're not getting the top ratings, meaning that Amazon will show your books more the more reviews you have. So do you see this problem for authors that they have, where it's really difficult because you spend all of this time writing a book, you go through all the pain of publishing the book. If you're an indie publisher, you know what it's like to publish a book independently. It's a ton of work. And maybe you had to hire an editor, a book cover designer, a formatter. Like, there are so many people that you may have had to hire in order to get your book published. So there's so much time, money, and effort into making and creating your book that you really have a passion to create. But then, of course, now it's like, how do you sell your book? You really need to sell your book, and you need to sell your book in volume if you want to be a bona fide author, meaning you want to make a living off of this. So if you're a reader, I urge you to think back to the books that you've read in the past year, whether you read them in paperback or hardcover or Kindle or Nook or audiobook. Think back to the past year of how many books you've read, which were the books you've read, what were the authors that you've read, and did you leave a review? It's super crucial and super important. Now, I had to self-check here because I've read books in the past year for which I did not leave a review. So I'm really working hard on rectifying that, because it's once I realized how crucial reviews are for authors, especially indie authors, that I realized that I need to honor that myself by leaving reviews for the authors that I love and the books that I love, and just leave those reviews so that those authors can also shine through more book sales in order to become an author that they want. Here's the thing that people struggle with. People that are readers often struggle with this concept that it's the ego that's blocking them to leave reviews. So, for example, if an author comes to you, an independent author even, comes to you and says, hey, would you mind leaving a review if you've read my book? And let me give you one prime example. So Goodreads, which is a website that some of you may be on, Goodreads has a program where an author can give away, they can host a giveaway where actually Goodreads hosts it, they gather all the names, and then they randomly pick, like, if you want to give away 10 books, they randomly pick 10 names in order for you to give away 10 books. And then the author, it's the author's responsibility or the publisher's responsibility, depending on who is doing the giveaway, to send out those 10 books to those 10 random people that put in their names for the sweepstakes in order to win the book. Well, it was supposed to be an even exchange, meaning that when you give away a book, you're giving away that book for a review in return. So it's like you give something and then you get something in order to help your writing career or your author career. And so the person that receives the book gets something. They get a free book and they enjoy the free book, or they don't enjoy the free book. But in order to pay for the book, they leave a review on Goodreads, on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble Books, whatever it is, they leave that review for that author. And what tends to happen is that people are so accustomed to trying to win stuff or get free stuff, or they're used to reading free stuff online, and maybe even on Kindle, they're used to having free books on Kindle, that they take for granted the fact that the author is really the one in need of those reviews, and that it's not fair to that author to have to send out those books and then not get anything in return. it kind of works of a giving-receiving cycle, because the author works really, really super hard on a book. And if you're an indie author, if you're a published author, you know this. You know how hard you work on the book. And that when you give away your writing for free in hopes of getting a review, that it's just really important that that person honors that and then leaves that review so that you can flourish as an author. So just think about this, guys. If you're a reader and you really enjoy a specific author, and you don't leave reviews for your author. Let's just say you don't, because you've got too much to do, because you're lazy, because you think like, oh, this author's probably making millions of dollars, which is false, because most authors don't make millions of dollars, and you don't leave the review. Well, you really like this author. Well, the author now, because they have no book sales, because you haven't left a review, and probably if you had that mentality, maybe 20 other people had that same mentality, then they can't make a living being an author anymore. So then they have to go back to a job being a checkout person at a grocery store, or they have to go back to working in a factory because they can't make ends meet on being an author, and then they can't write books anymore. So do you see how, in order to support your authors, to support the people that you love in today's day and age, because it's changed so much, that the visibility of that book counts on the reviews. The visibility, because remember, if you don't have the book in front of somebody's eyes, if you don't have the book in front of their eyes, they're not going to be able to buy it because they're not going to know it's there. So do you understand that that's the purpose of this? It's not that the authors that reach out to you are ego-driven. It's not that if there's a yoga teacher, for example, in your yoga studio that's written a book and she asks you to like, hey, could you guys read this and leave a review? It's not that she's trying to boost her own ego. It's that she knows the reality of what it means to be an author today. She knows that reality. The reality is if you don't get the book in front of people, then it's never going to sell. And when you wrote the book, a lot of authors write it for themselves, but many write it because they want to start a career in writing. And the only way they can do that is through reviews today. And it's an unfortunate circumstance of what has happened in the world of internet, but that's just the reality that we have today as authors. That is our reality. Our reality is we need reviews in order to have visibility. Bottom line, that's it. So your homework is, if you're an author or if you're a reader, this is your homework. Your homework is, if you've read any books in the past year, any books, look at the books that you've read. Look at your Kindle reader. Look at your Amazon purchase order list. If you've read any books in the past year, go back and leave reviews for all of the books that you've read in the past year. Go on Goodreads, go on Amazon, go on Barnes & Noble, wherever you purchased your books, leave a review. Support those authors. It's the only way they can make a living by writing, and it's the only way they can bring great content to you. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for subscribing to my channel below. Share this video with friends, family, and your author dogs. Thank you for pledging your support on Patreon. That's another way that authors can keep the show on the road, so to speak. They can keep things going, is through sites like Patreon, which is a creative site for creators, in order for you to give a donation and say, you know what, I support this creator, I support this artist, I support this trade that has been lost and is losing things like being an artist or being a performer or being a book author. These are dying arts that will die without your support. So thank you so much for pledging your support. www.patreon.com/MichelleFondin, and I will see you in the next video.